welcome to another day of Litmas. Today we're having a little cozy time in here. We're going to talk about some cozy wintry reads. I have 10 recommendations for people to read during the colder season of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and opposite for the Southern. You know, you guys can use this when it's your turn for winter, but right now it's Northern Hemisphere time, so therefore, nothing. Okay. But I have 10 books to recommend to you guys. I have a few different reasons for why I've chosen them as a wintry read. Some of them are set during winter, some have winter in the title, and others are just what I feel like would be really good to curl up next to a fireplace with your cup of hot cocoa and a fuzzy blanket under your Christmas lights and stuff, if you celebrate Christmas, or just general lights, and just read your book and have a nice time. So that's what we're gonna do. Book number 1 is The Binding by Bridget Collins. I don't know why I had to look at that. I knew who that was. This was a surprise for me. I picked this book up when I was in Ireland, and it was definitely a cover buy, but it is about a man who does bookbinding, but with this bookbinding, it's a way to put memories into the book so that people forget them. So some people put really bad memories away into them, and then there are more sinister uses of this magical bookbinding and stuff. And it just has, because I mean it is a bookish book, but I do believe we do have some like colder moments, and there's an interesting romance that happens in here. It is queer, and I really love the prose of this. I listened to this book on audiobook, and I really enjoyed it and thought it was a very well done read. I really want to read Bridget Collins' new book. Well, I don't know if it's new anymore, but I definitely want it. I believe it's called The Betrayals, and it has a very similar cover style, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I'm a sucker for this. This is exactly the type of thing that I love the most. But this is very cozy. It's a bigger book. It's over 400. 438 pages in this paperback version of it, and it was just a really nice read. It has a little that mystery feel to it. Not feel, it is a mystery as you're trying to figure out some very interesting facts about our main character that he doesn't even know about himself. So I definitely recommend reading The Binding. Next up is a book some of you may have heard of before, and I find that it's a good one to read during winter because there is this really good mountain pass scene that made me feel very cold while reading it, but also the characterization of the main character. That's a sentence that works. So the main character of Katza, I feel, is a very wintry person. I'll say that. But if you haven't guessed by now, that is Graceling by Kristen Kishore, and this is the first in the Graceling realm novels. There are a bunch of different companion novels, and then there's the newest one called Winterkeep, which I would consider more of a sequel than companion because it follows events after, whereas with Graceling and Fire, those are both kind of happening in different times, but not consecutively. It follows Katza, who is a Graceling, which means that she has kind of a superpower, if you will. All Gracelings are shown because they have different colored eyes, and hers is murder. Her gift is murder. That's why she's one of my favorite characters. There are secrets abound. She goes off on a mission to try to rescue a certain somebody and gets involved with another person who is on the same mission. And it's not really an enemies to lovers plot, but it is definitely reluctance to be together. And I thoroughly enjoyed the characterization. I really loved the entire story of Graceling. It's one I kind of want to dive back into, but there's also a graphic novel of this now, so that might be the way that I dive back into the world of Graceling. I haven't read Winterkeep yet, but I thoroughly enjoy it, and I think it's a really good read for the colder months. Graceling. Next up, I mean, aesthetically, this book is very much winter. It is blue and silver, for one, and that is The Kingdom of Bach by Marie Lu. This is a special Owl Crate edition, that's why it's all blue and silvery, and it's just a gorgeous book. So this is a bit of a historical with a hint of fantasy in it, because this surrounds Nannerl, who is Mozart's sister, and it kind of goes through their life of being musical prodigies as children and a kind of fairy creature that they get entangled with. But a lot of this, I feel, is a really good read for the cozy times, wintry months, aside from just aesthetically here. It's got a lot to do with music, obviously. It's dealing with Mozart, and I find music is great all times of the year, but there's something about a story set around music during the winter months that just hits me. Maybe it was because, you know, a lot of my concerts and things growing up were in winter months rather than other times. Maybe that's what. All my memories of concerts and stuff usually end with me leaving the place and there's a snowstorm outside. So that might be why I associate this so much with winter. But it's a beautiful, beautiful story based on real facts that happened with Mozart and a kind of the Kingdom of Bach, which they created as children. And Marie Lu did so much research. It took her 10 years, I think, to write this book. And it was so worth it, and definitely something everybody should be picking up. Next up, again, a lot of these books are aesthetically going to be very wintry, but the next one is The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Weymouth, and I love this book so very much. I mean, look at this book. Look at it, look at it, look at it. Gorgeous, yes. And this one, aside from having wintry kind of scenery and stuff, this is a very emotional read, and I feel wintertime is when we're all in our seasonal depressions, and sometimes reading sadder books are good for us in ways. They're a little bit therapeutic and cathartic to read, and this is a very emotional story. It's kind of taking the concept of Chronicles of Narnia and the what would have happened to the children when they came back to our world but never went back to Narnia, and how they deal with kind of the trauma of having experienced Narnia, and now the kind of culture shock at being back where they are. But that took a real toll on the younger sister, Evelyn, and it kind of goes back between Evelyn and Philippa, who is the older sister. It's a dual POV story of them. Although I think actually it's the first half of the book is all Evelyn, and the second half is all Philippa, if memory serves. And it's a very interesting way to look at these characters and see how they've adapted to life again, and how they're still processing that knowledge that they have. And it's a kind of a bittersweet ending for them, and it's very emotional. It's a very emotional read, so if you're into those kinds of things, I suggest picking this up. All right, next one is easy to tell because it has the word winter in the title, and that is Winter's Orbit by Everetta Maxwell, and I super loved this book. It's not for everyone though, okay? It does take place in winter, but it is a sci-fi, and it's heavy on the politics. So we have our two main characters who are kind of forced into a marriage. One of them was previously married, and their husband dies. And there's a mystery around the death, but in order to uphold this treaty, they quickly remarry him to this other prince that wasn't really in line for anything. These two are thrown into a marriage, and they're very different personalities. One of them is very much more casual, playful, but wanting to do a good job, and the other one is very serious and stuff, and you learn that there is some other trauma of the past and with the marriage that was previously had, and they are kind of getting caught up in this conspiracy around the death of the previous husband, and it is very well done. I super enjoyed this though. It is a bit much on the politics, and it's less so on the romance, but if you're more into like bigger stories like that, then you'll like this one. Next one is another got the word winter in it, but that is Winter Song by S.J. Jones. I love this book so very much because it's Labyrinth, sort of, but in a very different way. It's the kind of a retelling of the original tale of the Goblin King, which is what Labyrinth is also based on, and it's much more faithful to that story than this one. So the main character of Liesel is bipolar in this, which is really interesting because you don't see that a lot in books in general, especially not a fantasy one, but the author is also bipolar, and so it's kind of an own voices moment there. And her sister, who's this beautiful, amazing woman, gets kidnapped by the Goblin King, and so Liesl goes to rescue her and ends up kind of taking her place, and thus ensues this relationship between her and the Goblin King, and coming back and escaping and then trying to save the Goblin King, because it is a duology. We have Winter Song and Shadow Song, so I can't actually remember which one happens where, but I know this one, she definitely goes to the Goblin King's territory. It's a beautiful story. It's the type of romance that I'm kind of super into, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait for S.J. Jones' new books to come out, because I've been waiting forever, and I don't have a release date for them yet, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. But I super enjoyed her writing style, and it's a beautiful book. Next up is a book that has been talked about a lot, and it does have some parts of it taking place in winter as well, but it's another one of those where I find this is just a good time to read this book. It's winter, and that is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I really, really enjoyed this. It's a hit or miss for a lot of people, so bear with me on it, but I really, really enjoyed Starless Sea. It's a very bookish book. Again, a lot of books that involve libraries and mysteries and bookish things I find are really appealing to me in the wintertime, and that's why I've chosen Starless Sea on this list. So this story involves a big overarching mystery and kind of almost a treasure hunt for this like secret library called the Starless Sea that not everyone, but our main character Zachary is looking for, and he gets involved with a lot of other people, has this daring romance. It is also a queer representative book, and it's just gorgeous. Like, Erin Morgenstern's prose is so beautiful and just perfect for the winter time. And I mean, you could also read Night Circus, equally as a good winter book, but I think this one just suits it better because it's more about that bookish life. And there's definitely a winter setting in this one, whereas Night Circus, it's all the time. But Starless Sea, if you haven't already read it, because it is one that's fairly popular, definitely check it out. We are down to our top 3 books to read during the winter season, and next up is a book that I thoroughly loved, and that, I mean, obviously they're the top 3. We have Spitting Silver by Naomi Novik, and this is just a really great winter read. It does take place in winter. It takes place with more just cold themes and everything, but we have 3 very interesting and unique POVs in this story for all the different women in it. It is women taking power over their lives, and it's a very inspiring one, and I just absolutely adore this. I love both books by Naomi Novik, for Spinning Silver and Uprooted, which they're not like a series, but they're similar aesthetics, and I only just finished Uprooted, so I don't think Uprooted, though, is the best for a winter read. I think Uprooted is better for spring. But that's because it deals with, like, a forest and stuff. We have another situation of a girl being taken away by not the Goblin King, but kind of a fae creature, which are called the Static in this. And I really loved the crafting of these fae-like creatures in this, and how she has to keep proving herself to the king and ends up, married to him because of promises and bargains that they make between each other, and it's very, very interesting. And then there's a few other characters of one who's becoming the Tsarina? Is that? Because the Tsar marries one of them, and then there is another girl who is more farmhand girl who takes care of her family and stuff. And so we have 3 very unique POVs, and I think they're all just an amazing read for the wintry season. The number 2 book, the second best wintry read book, is another hard-hitting emotional one. It is a contemporary book, but that is The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. This takes place at Denver International Airport during a snowstorm, a horrible blizzard where all the flights are grounded. But we have the main character of Rin, who is trying to fly home to California, I think, for the holiday, and the thing about her is that she has a best friend who has passed away almost exactly a year ago, and she wants to be home when the clock strikes midnight, and it's been a year since her friend has gone. Now she's surpassed her friend in age and things, and so she has a lot of trauma for this. It has interesting obsessive compulsive disorder representation from that happened, that that occurred to the character after the accident that killed her friend, and she is stuck at this airport and is kind of freaking out, but she meets a few other people who she connects with and ends up having kind of this romp of a time hanging out at DIA. And it's just so funny to me because I'm from here and I know DIA very, very well. And all of the conspiracy theories surrounding DIA kind of feature in this. But it is a very heartwarming story that deals with trauma and tragedy and PTSD and overcoming all of these things. It's beautiful, and it is set in the wintertime. And I think everybody should be reading this book, Jessica Brody. If you don't know, Jessica Brody also wrote... what is it? The Saves the Cat. She did that one, but this is one of her actual books, and it's an actual book, but one of her fiction books. And it was my first real experience with Jessica Brody, and I definitely love her writing. The number one book I have chosen to read in the winter time is another book that has winter in the title. It is also a blue and white book, but that is because I have a special Owl Crate edition of it, and I absolutely love this book. It's a little bit witchy and it's a little bit wintry, and that is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. Can you even see it? Can you see the glory of this book? It is beautiful, and I love it. Look at it. The other copies are also beautiful, but this is the prettier one. And this deals with a girl who's a witch and lives in this very interesting little tiny town where the wood takes things. And she has this kind of ability of finding random objects in the woods, because the wood has like almost a deposit of random items, but she ends up stumbling across a boy who has no memory, and she ends up kind of helping him figure out who he is, why he was in the woods, why he's not dead, because it's winter, it's cold, and now the whole town is snowed in. She also ends up kind of taking care of this other girl who snuck into this boys' camp, that they are kind of figuring that this boy probably came from this boys' camp, and she had snuck in to hang out with the boys. But it's very dark, very good mystery, as that hint of fantasy in it with the witchiness in it, and it's just beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's just gorgeous, and I love it. And y'all should be reading this. Don't be sleeping on this book, because it's great and it is perfect for the winter season. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 picks for winter reads. And I hope if you haven't read them that you do pick them up. If you have read them, let me know what did you think of those books in the comments below. If you loved them, you hate them. And feel free to put other wintry read books in the comments. Let me know what I should be reading this winter. And you can also reach me on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. Check out my Ko-fi page if you want to support me as a content creator. I super appreciate it. And I will see you next time, cuties. Bye! Can I help you? Did you want to be in the video? There's a Kit Kat. Hi. Can I help you? You want to sit here? Okay. Yes, we do. We have a Chris. Are you here to be my cozy partner? Yeah? Okay. Cozy partner time. What? Okay, or not. Bye. Oh, is that in your way? I'm sorry, that's your cozy spot. What? What do you want from me? Cats. You here because I was talking about cats? Yes. Hi again. Can I help you? Hi. Hunt? Can I take that for you? There you go. Now you can sit there. Are you comfortable yet?